Hello everybody and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda, and today we're going to be looking at the top 5 classic board games not to buy. So, this is a continuation of my series on board games not to buy, and just like in my last one for Walmart games not to buy, you guys will also be getting 5 games that I think you should buy instead. Actually, you're going to get a few more than 5 games I think you should buy instead. So let's go ahead and start off with my first classic board game not to buy, and that is Monopoly. Now, a lot of people out there are going to go, well, I love Monopoly because I love this part of it or that part of it. And I'm not saying there aren't things that people probably love about Monopoly. What I'm saying is there are 2 games out there that do what Monopoly does better than Monopoly does it. First off, we've got Lords of Vegas. If you want to feel like you're owning a real estate empire and beating up your friends to do it, and also that you are just having a lot of fun getting lucky or unlucky, as the case may be, then Lords of Vegas is going to be your better option. Lords of Vegas is a great game where you are just putting out casinos into the very boring original Vegas. And you're making really fun, thematic casinos and hoping that people will come to your casino and that you can make a lot of money and points from them coming because of your fame as a mob boss. You're having battles between different casino groups. You're having so much fun, and it really captures the side of Monopoly that a lot of people like, of the luck making it so that you feel like anything can happen. And that's exactly how it feels in Lords of Vegas. Anything can happen in some ways. But it's a little bit more predictable luck than Monopoly, so you're not always getting screwed. You're usually getting something good this time and something bad this next time. Not always something bad. And I've found a lot of times in Monopoly, one person often ends up just having all the bad luck, or has the bad luck at the beginning, which means bad luck in the end. Whereas in Lords of Vegas, you could have a little bit of meh luck at the beginning, and you won't lose just because you had meh luck at the beginning. You can get your way out of it. So that's one of my replacements. The other one I would recommend is probably Great Western Trail. Great Western Trail, which is a very hard word for me to say for some reason, is a really excellent game that basically mimics Monopoly in everything. You're moving people up a path to get to a destination, to then start the path over again to make money and get points in this case, which is just a little bit different than money. And you're building buildings along this path that other people have to pay you to go past. Just like Monopoly. The difference is, first of all, Great Western Trail makes sense of this. In Monopoly, it makes no sense that you're stopping at other people's properties and then renting them. What? So you walked by and suddenly you have to pay somebody rent for standing near their building? It doesn't make any sense. But in this game, you're going through their town. You're getting water and booze and horses and horseshoes. So of course you're going to have to pay something to go through their town, but that's what's great about it is it's thematic. It's also a little bit more strategic. So for those people who want a game like Monopoly that feels like Monopoly, but actually has strategy to it, Great Western Trail is a great example of that. The next game I'd like to look at is Clue. Now, Clue is a fun game. Actually, it's one of the ones on the list that I almost could recommend to you, except that there's a way better game because Clue doesn't tell a story. That's one of the bigger problems with Clue. It really doesn't tell you a story. And for a mystery, a murder mystery especially, it's fun to have a story. And that's why I would recommend Watson and Holmes. Watson and Holmes is a game that really well has a story to it. You start every game by reading the beginning of the story. You're traveling to locations that tell you a story. And then from the story, you're kind of doing what you're doing in Clue already. You're figuring out clues and trying to figure out 3 questions that you need answered. They're not exactly the same questions you have in Clue, but pretty much the same questions as in Clue. And what I love about this game is, just like in Clue, you're going to be getting clues from other people. You can listen in on other people's clues. You can figure out other people's clues. One of the other things I love about this game is whenever you lose the game, just like in Clue, you can say, I have the answer, and you go there and you try to figure out the answer. If you're wrong, you lose. And same thing in this game. The difference is when you lose, you now become another player who helps the other people to figure out what you couldn't. So you actually kind of are still part of the team of people figuring out the mystery. And I like that element because it really makes it feel like, yeah, I lost, but that's okay because I actually was instrumental in helping this person understand what happened because they were thinking the same way I was. So now they know they were wrong, or they were thinking differently than I was, but they weren't sure, and now they know they were right. All around, I just like how the game plays and how it's much more thematic as a game than the random die rolling in Clue to try to get from place to place and the random teleporting and all sorts of random stuff in Clue. This is more thematic and more storied, and it's a lot of fun, so I would highly recommend grabbing that game. Next up, I'm going to look at chess. Now, chess, of course, people are going to love chess. I'm not going to say you can't love chess. My big issue with chess is the fact that you really need to sit across from somebody who's identically good at the game as you are. Same level of good. The other thing I hate about chess is it makes no sense as a battle game. None of the strategies or thought processes that go into that battle make sense. Especially not in a medieval battle, where in the medieval battle, the king would often charge forward with his people and possibly die because he charged forward with them. That's not really the king in chess where you sit in the back and just kind of wave at people while they go do your bidding. And why is the queen on the board? Why are bishops fighting in a war? Like, none of this stuff makes sense. Maybe if you call them Templars or something, but it just doesn't make sense. There's another game, more ancient and way better, called Go. It's from China. It's an ancient Chinese game. It's a game that computers couldn't even beat humans at until, I think, the 2000s, around 2010. Whereas, it was like, I think the 80s or 90s when a computer beat somebody at chess. Because Go is, first of all, a simpler game. Second, it's a game that actually makes sense. Your goal is to surround the enemy, and then you kill them. Which, in warfare, has pretty much been the strategy pretty much always. You surround the enemy, you flank them, and when you flank enemy soldiers, they usually lose. That's usually how it works. And so I really like how thematically it feels like a more basic game. It also feels very accurate to Chinese warfare, where all of the pieces are equally good and bad. None of the pieces are really great or really poor. So your job isn't to worry about each individual piece. Your job is to worry about the battlefield. Can you win the battlefield? And what I like even better is, honestly, it almost feels like sometimes you're playing a couple different battlefields on a bigger board, so that it almost feels like a war. So you might lose the battle over in this corner, but you might win the battle over here, so you might win the war because you focused on the right battle. It's just a very thematic, very well-designed game that if you want an ancient game that's going to really make you think and outplay your opponent, and also that I feel like doesn't have as many strategies in a book that you can name, go for Go. It's the way to go. Sorry about the really horrible pun. Was not intentional. Next up, I'm going to talk about Risk. Now, I actually used to like Risk a lot because I like battle games. I like going out and conquering a map of the world. That is just a fun feeling. And I get why people like Risk. But there is a game that does the exact same thing, that takes shorter, and that does it better. And that game is called History of the World. And now this game, I cannot say enough good things about. Me and my wife and some other people have played this recently. We've been playing it a decent amount lately because it is such a fantastic game. I was a history teacher before I became a board game reviewer, and I know how accurate this game is to history. They do a really great job because every turn, you're going to have 5 turns in the game. That's it, 5 turns. And in each turn, you are going to control a different civilization, which is just so much fun. On top of that, every turn after you're done, you will score points. So if somebody else comes in and blows up all the stuff that you did, you still got points for it, at least once. Which is so nice. It's not like Risk where you wipe somebody out completely and the game's over for them. In this game, you're not trying to wipe somebody out completely, because if you wipe them out completely, you probably won't win, because somebody else will be doing something more productive out in empty territory. So it's a great game where you actually kind of work together with other players. If somebody's winning the game, you work together against that person, and in a way that doesn't feel like it really annoying, because in Risk, if everybody joins up against one player, it's just hundreds of armies against your tiny little armies, and you just lose everything, and then you get eliminated and you lose. In this game, everybody teams up against you for one turn, you lose enough victory points that they go, okay, he's not winning by a lot now, and it was just one turn. Next turn, you can get a new civilization and rebuild, and it's no problem. And people won't be worried about you because you aren't winning by a major amount of points anymore. So I absolutely love how it feels like the rise and the fall of civilizations every single turn. It feels like you're building a story of the world, and it's just a beautifully designed game. It also doesn't take out the luck element from the game. That's why I would say it's the best game if you want to take Risk and make it a new game. The other game I would recommend instead of Risk would be Smallworld, but the thing about Smallworld is it's in a fantasy world, and it also has no luck. So if you liked the little bit of risk that you had to take in Risk, then you're not going to want to play Smallworld, you're going to want to play History of the World. And if you like the element of conquering the real world with real world civilizations and places and making a story, then you're probably going to have a lot more fun playing History of the World. Whereas Smallworld's better as a fast game, as a fantasy game, and as a game with alternating changing patterns and powers and a new world of fantasy that you're creating a story for. So both are good alternatives for Risk, but I would personally say History of the World is the best alternative for Risk. It's basically the same game, just better. The last game on the list is Life. The game that I would say is a great replacement is Call to Adventure. Now, Call to Adventure is you're living the life of a character in a story. And the cool thing is there are two different versions of it, and I know a lot of you out there will like this because there's a Brandon Sanderson version, and Brandon Sanderson version is the Stormlight Archives. They actually have one of these games for Stormlight Archives. So for those of you who just funded that Kickstarter for Brandon Sanderson, you can go buy yourself this game and be a character in his universe. Ka-ching. For those of you who don't know about that place, maybe you want to start with the regular version, and the regular version is absolutely fantastic. It really does feel like you're a fantasy character building a story of your life. You have a peasant farmer who goes from being that peasant farmer and rises to be a mighty king by the end. You have a young sorcerer who turns evil and actually helps blow up the world or takes the place of the Dark Lord. And you can do, honestly, kind of whatever you want to do. You might not win, but you'll have fun playing it. And it captures a feeling of life while at the same time being a better designed game. It's just more tight. Everything's more balanced. Everything feels a lot more fun and forward moving. It's not as much, do I land on this lucky space? There's a little bit more planning. And if you don't want to plan, you can just have fun making a story. That is all for my list of the top 5 classic board games not to buy, and the games I would recommend to buy instead. All of these games are down in the description in links. I also have links to reviews of these games. If you want a better idea of what these games are about, I would highly recommend watching those reviews. A lot of them are by some of my favorite reviewers for board gamers, and hopefully in the future I'll cover a few of these. If you'd like me to cover any of these, let me know which ones you'd like me to cover, or if you'd like me to do another top 5 board games not to buy or to buy, just let me know what you would like me to do, maybe what theme to do it off of, what website or whatever. Just let me know down in the comments in the description. And as always, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and join us next time for Rest and Reason.